Hello, my name is Daniel Drury, and I would like to give you a brief history of the start of Dodge and the Dodge brothers. First of all, they grew up in Michigan with their father, who had a machine shop. This is them, John and Horace. John and Horace, there was 4 years difference in them, and they were really, really close. They were really close brothers. They grew up playing in dusty streets and right along their father in their machine shop, learning machine work, learning how to be great machinists. John was the better machinist, and he developed this bearing, this dirt-resistant bearing, the first of its kind, and he patented. And then John, he got some financial backing so they could build this bike under the name Evan and Dodge Bikes. After their bike little incident, they moved to vehicles and worked for Oldsmobile at first, making transmissions, because Oldsmobile knew that they made quality parts and wanted quality parts made for his vehicles. The first one they worked on was the curved dash car, and Oldsmobile was really happy with the transmissions they were coming out with, that he wanted more. And they started making engines too for these vehicles, and Oldsmobile did really well, and he was happy with that. And then after that, Henry Ford came to him, and he needed help. He was in this financial bind, and he needed an investor. So he offered the Dodge brothers 10% of his company, Ford Motor Company, for $10,000, $7,000 in parts and $3,000 in cash. And they didn't know it yet, but that was going to be a good investment. So they worked for Henry for a long time, and they had that 10% in stake. And since they were making such quality parts, the Model T was a good quality car. And after Henry Ford made his first sale, he was almost bankrupt, and after his first sale, it skyrocketed. The Model T was a success. Everyone wanted one. The first one sold for $800-something, and then they just gained more and more. And they got their investment back, the $10,000, in the first year of dividends. But they didn't want to work for him, and Ford was tired of paying out all these dividends, so they tried a little sneaky move to give his son the company and then try to get out of paying all these dividends every year, because eventually it was getting up to be millions of dollars every year in dividends. But the Dodge brothers didn't fall for this trick. They eventually sued him for $19 million, and then after getting a bunch of back dividends and selling their stock share for $25 million, they made a total of $20 million in revenue off of their $10,000 investment. And with that money, they built Dodge Maine, one of the largest manufacturing plants of that time. And they were very, very hands-on with this, because they were great machinists, so they knew all the secrets of the Ford T and just made it better. And they were so good, everyone knew that they were so good that they just had so much success. So the first car they made just made so much money, and they had so much success with it was a Model 30, and it was rugged, dependable, and the Dodge brothers at that time, they were really popular with how everyone knew that they made quality parts, and that their vehicles would be better quality than the Model T. And it actually sold only $100 more than the Model T, but it was way better. It was so good that the military adopted it as their work vehicle. So that's got to say something. It's dependable, reliable, and it will pretty much last forever. But they didn't last very long. John came down with pneumonia in September of '62, and then a few months after that, Horace died too of what they say, grief, and left their company to their wives, Anne and Matilda. And they had it for quite a while, 8 years, and they made a lot of money. When they got it, it was worth $60 million, and when they sold it, 8 years later, they made $162 million. And they sold it to Chrysler. And Chrysler Chrysler still has the company, and he tried to keep it alive, but he struggled for a long time through a couple wars. He tried to partner up with a couple other companies, but it wasn't really working out. And then the big muscle car era came through, and they developed some of the most classic muscle cars, like this one, the Challenger. And everyone loved it. It was just this classic car, and it had beautiful lines and plenty of power. And now, once again, they're coming back, and they're introducing the Charger. Well, they introduced the Charger a couple years ago, and at first a lot of people had some skepticism, and they didn't really understand why they would try to rebuild this car. But I think they're doing it right, and they're making quality cars, and I think the Dodge brothers would be really proud of where Dodge is today. And I thank you for viewing this presentation, and I hope you learned something about Dodge. Have a good day.